I wish I had learned this truth many years ago. Be thankful for the days, good and bad.
All right, welcome to another episode of Warrior versus Zombie, and I can't be more excited today to introduce our guest today, Brigitta Hoeferle, and she is going to blow your mind. But first, before we get started, I want to remind those who maybe be joining us for the first time or maybe haven't or forgotten why they come to listen to Warrior versus Zombie. Success is a journey, it's not a destination. As warriors, we all have a history of ups and downs, wins and losses that are all part of making us who we are up to this point, and they provide a foundation for our path forward. We all battle our inner zombie as well as those zombies in our world. In each episode, I interview warriors who are aspiring leaders from all walks of life, entrepreneurs, artists, health practitioners, educators, business owners, really any inspired leader that has a story to tell. These warriors have a cause, they have unique value, and a vision that goes generations into the future. And today's guest is absolutely no exception. Brigitta Hoeferle is an amazing warrior. She's a teacher, a trainer, a founder, CEO, author, and speaker. Her warrior journey started in Germany. And in 2004, she moved to the U.S. with her 2 teenage daughters and her husband, the renowned culture guy. I want to hear a little bit about that. She founded the German language school at the Montessori School of Cleveland, then became the CEO and owner of the NLP Institute of Atlanta, #1 lead trainer of the Codebreaker technology. Her success is driven by her unique communication skills, tenacity, and really a never-ending pursuit of impact. Now combining her creativity, humanity, and passion with her degrees in marketing, communication, social pedagogy, and education, she is a sought-after mentor and leader of warriors. Brigitta, welcome to Warrior versus Zombie. How are you today?
Thank you for having me, Dave. I am fantastic. It is such an honor and pleasure to be here with you today.
Well, I'm excited to have you, Brigitta, and it's a beautiful day here in Dallas. Are you in Atlanta? Is that right, or is that where you are today?
I am in Atlanta. Absolutely, yes. I am in the beautiful South.
So tell me a little bit about your world. I'm always fascinated being in Dallas. I just literally landed flying back from Kansas City. It's a little different there. I have guests from California to the East Coast. So tell me, and in this time we're on election day, right? So how's the world in Atlanta from your perspective? What's going on there?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting world that we're living in right now, specifically on this November 3rd as we're experiencing it today. It's quiet. I was at the post office earlier. It's quiet, and I don't know if it's the quiet before the storm. I am, here to tell the story, and I sometimes I sit together for family dinner with my teenage girls, and we wonder what we're going to talk about 10 years in the future. Oh, remember that election day? And remember that year 2020 that no one wanted to remember, and what came out of it, and how we just went through it and landed on the other side. And we didn't go back to our old normal. We actually went to a new exceptional. And I'm excited for that. I am not looking at 2020 with grim pessimism. I am looking at 2020 with excitement, because, when everything's up in the air and there is uncertainty, we as humans are looking to create some sort of certainty in that variety. I like to, rather than uncertainty, see it as a variety and see what else can we make out of this, right? In March, when we went into the pandemic, or even, end of February, I remember coming back from LA, and at the LA airport, I think it was on the 27th or 28th of February, the majority of the people that were coming from Asia all had masks on. And I'm like, oh, should I be wearing a mask? I don't know. That might be a sign, right? And yeah, sure enough, I just got home, and then we went into lockdown here in Atlanta. And where I said before, I would never do, any live trainings that I have done before. And I have done a lot of live trainings. I will never, ever, ever, ever ever do them online. I said that still in February. Well, you know the beautiful saying, man makes plans and God laughs.
Yeah, never say never. Never say
Exactly.
never. I've learned that many times in my life. I could tell we could have a whole show just on never say never, because there's so many times where I've said I'm never. I mean, when I graduated from college, it was in a place called Flint, Michigan, and my buddy and I stood on the back 40 at our fraternity house and looked over and said, okay, I'm never coming back to Michigan. I'm never coming to Flint, and, you know, all this stuff. And we both, that we're not doing that. And within 2 years, not only was I back in Michigan, but I was back in Flint, and I was doing things, and it all worked out. I mean, it was good, but so never say never. So I'm interested. I want to ask you this. So your daughters, you mentioned your daughters. So how old are you said 2 daughters, right?
Two girls. Yep. Yeah. 18 and 15.
Okay. So, and how are they weathering all of this craziness themselves? I'm very fascinated by that. My kids are just a little older. My youngest is 26, and I have 5. So, and 4 daughters, but my son is the 26-year-old. But how are the 15 and 18-year-old? I'm curious as to how that's working out.
Yeah, you know, first of all, I'm grateful that their school, and they go to an entrepreneurial high school, that their school was immediately going on Zoom. So they transferred all of the classes almost from one day to the next, all on Zoom. And the teachers were very flexible, but it was hard, and it still is hard, right? They're starting to go back in person on a 50% scale. So my daughter goes back on Thursdays and Fridays in person, and then on Monday through Wednesday, she's on Zoom with her classmates. The social distancing, it's not really a social distancing, because they're still social on social media, which I don't even know if that's social anymore. Honestly, we could talk about that for, I think, hours and hours, but it's the physical distance. It's the kinesthetic, the feel and touch that they're missing out. And specifically, you know, my youngest daughter, who's not seeing her friends, she's seeing a few select friends. It really had a toll on her. You know, I don't know if you're familiar with some of these statistics, but the suicide rate in middle schoolers has increased over the last few years by 82%. I can only imagine what it is right now, because our mental health has taken a toll. A big toll. I wrote an article for Mental Health magazine I think it was in April, right as we went into the pandemic. And then Amelie, our 18-year-old, she graduated and never walked. She graduated from high school. She actually got her diploma in the mail. And, you know, and then we did a little presentation at home. I caught it in the mail, and we did a little presentation, and I got her a robe and a hat, and we did, you know, some fun stuff, but she found it cheesy. She's like, it's just not the same. And she's kind of missing that closure of, I have worked so hard over all of these years, and she's like a 4.0 great student and has really worked her little booty off. And there's no closure. And of course, as a family, we've embarrassed the heck out of her with putting yard signs up and celebrating her on social media and you know, Zoom calls and all of that. But it's just not the same. And at the same time, on the flip side of that token is it's going to make them stronger. I know that we're all going to come out of this when we choose to, and we're going to create something much, much stronger. Companies that have been put in place or that have grown in a pandemic come out so much stronger. And I see that for my own children as well, because it's a mindset, right? And although there is some you know, mental stuff going on, it's up to us as a family to keep the family tight. And for that, I'm really grateful for the pandemic, because it took us, you know, I work from home. My husband has his office at home. Now the kids are at home. They got 2 new computers because we had to, because the computers were outdated. So it brought a lot of good things as well. I don't want to just highlight the bad things.
No, I actually totally agree with you. My youngest daughter graduated from University of North Texas in May, and exactly the same story. She didn't walk. We got her diploma in the mail. She'd worked, and see, she had actually taken a few. She'd gotten 2 years in, and then she's an artist, and then she decided to go back. So it's been a long journey, and then after all, just like you said, just after all the work, after all she'd done, and then it was kind of like, now what? So we had the same. It's funny. I just, it's always fascinates me to talk to other warriors, and you've already said some things that totally resonate with me, and in terms of, when things like this happen, number one, we're not going back to the way it was. It's going to be something better. Warriors, we see these biggest challenges as big opportunities, not as a thing to lament. So I agree. I think my daughter Hannah is totally stronger for it. We did a Zoom graduation. We took the schools. They did it. Finally got around to saying, well, we're not going to meet in person. So we did it on Zoom. We took the recording. We interspersed it. We invited all the family, and I think we had more people participate in that, our version of the graduation ceremony for Hannah, than we ever would have had if she would have walked at the university. And I mean, it's not the same, but in some respects, we may look back and say it's better. The other thing is, my family today at 5:30, we have 3 times a week, because my kids are scattered. We have a family Zoom to check in, to see where everybody's at. And it's, not a long time. Sometimes we might play a game back when we were really locked down. Now it's just, how's everybody doing? And we're more connected now and more. So the other thing you said is, it's not social distancing. That's a misnomer. It's not social distancing. It's physical distancing, but we have to stay socially connected. And if you lose that social connected, that's when you start having the problems you're talking about with the psychological. And I'm a full-on introvert. I need that kinesthetic. I need the things you're talking about myself. And but we just got to find other ways. So wow, yeah, you're really so. But your daughter, they're doing good.
Yeah, they're doing like watch parties with so sometimes they just have a watch party and they watch a movie together, and then they comment on it. Back in the days on Comedy Central, they had these funny little comics. I can't remember what the show was called, but they were commenting on the movie that they were watching. And I feel like sometimes I walk in a room and it's exactly that kind of scenario, and I find it hilarious. So it's just a new way of being.
Well, this has been great. I'll tell you what, I can already tell we could go for hours. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break. I want to introduce you to Ricky Jean Wright and our theme song, It's Not the Getting There, here at about a 30-second segment. We'll come back. And Brigitta, what I want to really talk about is kind of, you have such a fascinating story starting in Germany, coming here, and some of the things that I kind of went through there in the beginning. Really like for audience to hear kind of your journey from, wherever you want to start up to that point. And then we'll take another break and come into where you are today. But I'd like to hear a little of your story when we come back. So with that, let's take a quick break. We'll hear a little bit from Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. And we'll be back with Warrior versus Zombie and Brigitta Hoeferle. And we'll have a lot of fun as we keep going down this road.
But the miles become the teacher while the student learns real slow, traveling blind most of the time. Wherever you go, it's not the getting there, it's the journey every day.
All right, welcome back to Warrior versus Zombie. And Brigitta and I have been having an amazing check-in, and I just wanted to make sure we got into the second segment where she can share with us her story. So, Brigitta, I want to hear a little bit about how you got to where you are today. So tell me how this all started and kind of give me some of the high points and maybe even some of the zombies you had to overcome along the way as we talk about your journey.
Yeah, for sure. So I was born in a small town, 600 people village in outside of Stuttgart in Germany. And I couldn't get out of there quick enough, right? I wanted to go into the big city. I wanted to be, part of the energy and part of the life. Because growing up in a small town with a missionary dad and an entrepreneur mom, and two sisters that are much older than me, they're 10 and 9 years older than me, I always heard that I'm just really, gosh, Brigitta, your energy is just so draining. Why do you always have to be so out there and so loud and so it's always the center? And the village kids and I was always the leader of the pack, and we created some really fun stuff. We did yard sales after I saw an ad from Bread for the World, and I saw these poor children with these bloated bellies and just bugs and flies all over them, and they had nothing. And I cried watching that ad on TV. And I remember asking my mom, what can I do? And she says, well, you can sell some of your things and donate the money. And I was 6 years old at the time. And I said, I'm going to do that. So I got all of the kids from the village together, and I said, we're going to collect all of our stuff that we no longer need. We're going to draw up posters and we're going to hang them around the village. And then we're going to meet on Saturday at the village center. It was right in front of the bread house where the women would bake their breads and their cakes on Saturdays. And we would meet there and we would sell our stuff, and everything that we would, all the money that we would gather, we donate to Bread for the World. And we did 106 Deutschmarks back then. That was in, mid 1970s. And I got a letter from Bread for the World, and I shared it with my friends. My mom actually has a picture to this day where I held up the letter, and I was so proud. And so that was the beginning of my entrepreneurship and my, wanting to go out and do good. I knew, and I saw that I can do whatever I decide to do. And there is an opportunity, and there's so much more that I wanted to do. So I went out, from growing up in the village, I moved to Stuttgart, started my corporate career there, and then moved to the United States to go to school here, went back to Germany, went back to Munich to work for a large holding company from Australia in a publishing house. And that's where I met my husband. And when I met my husband, we found out, hey, he's been in Minnesota as an exchange student. I've been in the States. I was going to school in the States. How about, one of these days we might move together to the United States? What kind of idea is that? And we went to the United States in 2003 on a vacation. And at that vacation, it was a Christmas vacation, we came back, and my husband actually had an offer for CEO position in Berlin. And I said, do you really want to take that? And he says, I haven't even looked at the offer yet. I don't think I want to do that. I think I want to move to the States with you. And I'm like, how are we going to do that? And he's like, I don't know. Let's figure it out. And we did. So in April 2004, we actually moved to the United States. Our daughter, Amelie, who's now 18, was about 16, 17 months at the time. So, we just took her. I had a business plan for a Montessori school in my back pocket. And we moved to the United States. Now, that sounds all, really, really easy and simple. Holy cow. It was not that at all. At one point, I was escorted out of the U.S. Embassy because I asked too many questions, and I was too inquisitive about, how our papers are coming along. So they literally escorted me out, and they said, do not come back for a long time. And I'm like, I think I just really screwed this up. We didn't. We got our papers. We moved to the United States. It started a Montessori school, and my father-in-law, who's a very structured, like any German that you can imagine, by the book, very organized, very structured. He goes, what is your plan B if this school is not working out? And I said, well, there is no plan B. It's going to work. What do you think? Right? There is no failure. There is only feedback. And he just shook his head and he's like, not did my husband marry a Swabian who's a Bavarian, but he also is taking my only grandchild to another country and doesn't have a clue what she's doing. Well, that was his thoughts. I had a different thought around that. So again, long story short, in 2004, we moved to a small town in Tennessee to build a Montessori school. And fast forward again, yes, we accomplished what we set out to do. There was a lot of feedback along the way. There was Department of Education feedback. There was Department of Health feedback. There was the fire marshals. There were all the departments that came along as we're building the school. And I thought, wow, I kind of envisioned this a little bit easier. But what is easy? I invite a challenge. So we built it. We started with 3 kids in January 1st. We opened January 1st, 2005, started with 3 students. We're at 125 students now. We're growing. And as I am building my business and as I am hiring these teachers and teaching the teachers in the Montessori method, I'm going, well, children are innocent by nature. It's the adults around them that screw them up. Let's be really honest, right? It's the teachers, it's the thought leaders, it's the parents, it's all of these people around them that place fear and place funky ideas and all of this stuff into their heads. And I said, well, I love children and I want to educate them. That's my heart. That's my desire ever since I was a little girl. But if I really want to make an impact on children, I got to start with the adults. And that's when I started looking more into neurolinguistic programming. I was heavily involved in self-development because I realized if I stop growing, if I stop learning, I'm going to start dying and my business is not going to grow either. And neither will my staff. So I got to model it. So I did. And I invested heavily in self-development and business development, found NLP. And then, again, long story short, within 10 years, my mentor, who founded the Neurolinguistic Programming Institute here in Atlanta in 1986, approached me and he says, I've been watching you. You're implementing everything that I'm teaching. Would you want to buy my business? And I'm like, I wasn't actually looking to buy another business, but let's talk, right? So if an opportunity is presented, I like to look at it. And I like to come from a place of the answer is always yes. Now, what's the question? So we just got to ask the right questions, right? So here we are. Bought the NLP Institute of Atlanta in 2017. And we moved to Atlanta from that small town in Tennessee. I'm out of the day-to-day operations at the school. The school is thriving. And, quite frankly, I also made the move for my children. My husband and I made the move for our children who are now teenagers, who were ready to be in the city, who were ready to be in this really cool entrepreneurial high school that they're in now, to continue their growth and to continue, the possibilities that are out there for them. That's where we are.
Wow. So that's a pretty fast-paced story. So the school in Tennessee, the Montessori school, is still going. You're still
yes.
You're still have that going as well, and then the NLP in Atlanta. That's the 2-year endeavor right now. Okay, well that's right. Pretty fascinating. Wow, that's a pretty fast year. So, of all the things, and you kind of rattle off a few challenges with regard to surprises, if you will, that you had. If one of the things, and I'm glad you said it the way you did, because it sounds like a storybook when you hear somebody's story in fast motion. And one of the things that all the warriors know that there's always challenge and there's support. In fact, the balance of challenge and support is what's required for us to grow and be healthy and continue. If you're just always expecting 100% support, you're living in a fantasy. If you're expecting 100% challenge, then you're depressed. But I mean, so life is that balance. What would you say, on your journey from the time when you were a kid. What was probably maybe the biggest zombie you had to overcome? And when I say zombie, it's, it can be internal, external. What was probably, share what was the biggest challenge you had to overcome?
I think it was it was my family, definitely. The women in my family, and I'm referring to my mom and my sisters, and it's no news to them, right? They were the glass half empty. I was always the glass, the glass is completely full because I'm just going to keep filling it. Like, there is no half empty. And they, to this day, they're struggling with my positivity, and they're struggling with my bubbliness, if you will. But I never let that really hold me back. It did give me a damper at times. And I had to work a lot on myself to not let that define me, and to not let, and also for me to not hold a grudge to them, because they just don't know different, right? I still love them. They just don't know different. And it was hard for me to let go of this. Why are they not, asking the question why, or asking any question that starts with WHY is never a good question, right? And it allows me not to grow. So I did ask myself a lot of times, why are they not accepting me the way that I am? And then I had to, in my coaching, in my further development, I had to ask myself, why am I asking those questions? And what does that do with me, and how is it supporting me, or how is it holding me back? So really setting them loose and in my head. And I think the greatest zombie was in my head, that I gave them the power over me to define me. And then really taking back my power and saying, I do not give you power to define me. I define who I am. And it was always my dad who said, look, you're, pastor, missionary, you're a tool for humanity. I was about, I don't know, 10, 11 years old when he said that. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. Sure. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, I guess. But now I do see what he meant. And he's passed away many, many years ago. And he was the one that was the cheerleader. He was the one that said, you do you, girl, right? You go, you're great the way you are. You got to do what you got to do. And, that was probably those two zombies when my dad passed away, and when I realized that my sisters are not there to, they came out of their own insecurities and their own risk averseness, that they just couldn't define, or that they couldn't make meaning of what I am or how I do things. So I think the biggest zombies that I see, even in my work with others, lives between your ears.
Yeah. And in fact, that's very true. And it really is. I'm not sure. I think that the whole thing with family and close friends that have been on the journey with you is when they realize that maybe you've kicked it into a higher gear, or you're moving to a different plane. It's kind of scary. I think that they're afraid of losing you, and then the other thing that you said, which is a common thing, is we need cheerleaders in our lives. And it sounds like you had a great dad, and I love the encouragement. I hope I'm a great dad, and I know that I constantly tell my son, my daughters, that all of them, you can, anything's possible. It's when I say, if anything were possible, that's kind of one of my signature questions. I say, if anything were possible, what would the future look like? Well, I say that, but you see, I'm also, I know you said your dad was a missionary, a Christian. I'm a Christian. I believe with God, all things are possible. Therefore, I believe that we are without limit. It's just, we only limit ourselves. And unfortunately, sometimes if we let other people, as you pointed out very, very clearly in that statement you just said about your zombies, is if we're not careful, we allow them the power to limit our possibilities. So that's a pretty cool story. Well, let's do this. We kind of got right through the story and right to where you are today, and I do want to hear about where you are today. Obviously it's very clear you're very passionate about the things that you're doing. You seem, amazingly resilient and driven and all these things. So I want to talk, when we come back, I want to hear a little bit about, kind of why you're doing, now that you've in this journey of discovery, what you think you're here for, why you're doing what you're doing, the value that you see yourself providing, what it is that you, and then if anything were possible, where would you take it from here? And then, so let's take a little quick break, listen to a little more of Ricky Jean Wright, and we'll come back with another part, hearing about where Brigitta is today with her NLP Institute, and we'll be back with another
It's
portion
not a
of Warrior
race to
versus
see
Zombie.
how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there. When you get there, you'll know. Funny how wisdom and youth.
All right, we're back with the third segment of Warrior versus Zombie here with Brigitta, and we really want to now hear, Brigitta, about where you are and where you're going. But before we do, I want to make a quick shout out to our sponsor, Be Connected, where entrepreneurs connect, and invite our audience to get in on the ground floor of a premier hub for successful warriors where they connect, and it really empowers them to make an impact on the world. And that's what we're all striving for, right? So if you are interested, check out Be Connected at beconnected.com. That's BEEKONNECTED.com. And there you can use a special code, My Vision Warrior, to sign up for free. All right. Now, Brigitta, we've got your story, and man, I'm my head's spinning with all the things that happen in just in such a short period of time. And now you're in Atlanta, and you're dealing with a kind of a new business. I mean, I know it was there, and but it's a pretty interesting thing. So tell me about, why you're doing what you're doing today. What was it that attracted you to that? What kind of value you see yourself providing? You're extremely unique and a great warrior from all angles. And then if anything were possible, where would you take it from here?
Wow, yes. So why am I doing what I'm doing? To really, go back to what my dad always told me, that I'm a tool for humanity, and that has many outlets. And I didn't know for the longest time of what does that outlet look like? If I remember a time when I was must have been 16, because in Germany you can go into high school through ninth grade or through 10th grade or through 13th grade. So when you go through any of the high schools, you also got to, decide, are you going to go through ninth grade and then do a 3-year apprenticeship? Or are you going to go through 10th grade and be a banker or insurance broker or something like that, or a realtor? Or you're going to go through 13th grade and you're going to go to university. And I chose a 10th grade route, and I chose to go into hospitality for the first time. But I asked my mom, I said, Mom, so if I'm going to hospitality now, is that something that I've got to do my entire life? And she just looks at me and she goes, no, honey, you're never going to do something for your entire life. You're going to do many, many great things. And that totally relieved me. I mean, it really had an impact on me. So I am here to lift others up. I'm here to share as many bubbles that come out of me as I possibly can, whoever wants them. Because as much as I am a very positive and bubbly and enthusiastic person, it attracts a lot of people, but it also pushes other people away. And I got to tell myself, I can't have enough flexibility to tone down my bubbliness and to tone down my enthusiasm if I make a choice to actually build rapport and build a relationship with them. And we haven't talked about my husband, Christian, yet. Christian is a very knowledgeable, very logic, very very even keel kind of person. And I remember my dad asking Christian, when Christian asked, if he may marry me, he says, "Are you sure? Are you sure you know what you're getting into?" And Christian goes, "Yeah, I think I got a pretty good read on what's happening here." So, we've been married for almost 20 years, and I attracted him with my bubbliness, where he is not as bubbly. And sometimes we're a really good power couple because it balances us out. So I think why I am here is to make an impact on others, to be the cheerleaders for others, to see, hear, and feel what an individual or an organization might not be able to see, hear, or feel yet. And I have that distance, and I have that knowledge of seeing what the potential is that's going on, or that could possibly happen, to hold them to in the beginning, hold the space until they can start to fill it, until that individual or that organization can actually see, oh, okay, so there is a greater purpose, there is a greater opportunity here, and yes, we can fill that need, right? If we go through the neurological levels by Robert Dilts, it starts at the very top with our own purpose, our own mission, and then down into the identity, into the values and the beliefs and the capabilities, and then that's how it shows up in our behavior and in our environment. But it's that the behavior is the result of it. It starts with our purpose and our mission. And I'm very, passionate about what I do. And I don't know if you can hear it or not, or if you could see me, you could probably see it in my facial features or in the way that my body moves. But I am that passionate person, and I coach a lot of individuals. I do training for organizations here in Atlanta and globally as well. And, I said it earlier in the first segment, in February this year, I said, I will never, ever, ever, ever do training live online. And here I am. We immediately switched over from live trainings and live courses that we have done here at the Institute to live online training. And because we were flexible enough to switch over, thanks Zoom, my days are filled with courses. Before we started doing this course today, I am almost finishing up training a coaching certification course that is a 3-month course. So we do that live online, and we have a retreat coming up, in 2021, where we get together in person and actually have that personal relationship with each other from people that are joining us from all over the world, and actually have that in-person relationship with each other, an in-person relation. So I love children, as I said earlier. That's my purpose. That's my passion, my own children. That's why I built a Montessori school. And I love parents, and I love individuals, and I want them to be successful. When you've done something one time, it's easier to do it over and over and over again. I've done it with a Montessori school. I took the Institute of the NLP Institute of Atlanta, 3 years ago with 2 courses, and we now have. I built out 2021. We have 24 courses in 2021, 24 big courses that are each 2 weeks. And then we have coaching certifications and coaching programs and so on and so forth. So we've built it out in the last three years tremendously. And my vision for the Institute is to be an institute with integrity, because quite frankly, there are enough institutes out there, specifically in self-development, that are all about the money, and they're all about the ego, and it's yucky, and I don't like it, and I'm not here for it. To say it like my teenage daughter would say it, I'm not here for it, not 1 minute. And that's what drives me, to really give people good, solid, meat on the bone tools that they can use for their own communication, that they can use for their success in business and their personal life, and that has that deep-rooted authenticity. Because I see and I feel that that's missing, specifically when you look at self-development. Not all of them. I don't want to generalize or overgeneralize, but a lot of them, way too many. And I've seen my share. from many stages.
So when you talk about organizations, I mean, wow, first of all, going from picking it up with 2 courses and now 20 plus courses, that's quite a lot of content. Do you focus predominantly on entrepreneurs, enterprises, all the above? I mean, what would be your ideal? I mean, when you're looking for somebody, and I mean, I got the part about, you know, you're impacting students and kids, but also their parents. But when you're promoting or looking for people who could benefit from those courses that you've got, what does that profile look like? I'm just very curious.
Yeah. So it's 2-parted. One is entrepreneurs, small businesses that have a business where they either have a team of contractors or they have employees that they have, you know, they're seeing some roadblocks of communication. They're like, I'm doing something wrong, but I can't put my finger on what exactly I'm not doing or what I'm doing wrong or what I could do better. And then on the other side, there's the organizations, large organizations like Cabbage Financials or Kaiser Permanente or other large, you know, organizations that we have here in Atlanta that have training. I mean, clearly they have customer service, they have at Cabbage, they have their sales team, they have their collection team that need to be trained because they're on the phone with people. And when you're on the phone with people, you don't have a lot of time. There's no time to lose. So you got to be very specific in your communication. And you also got to be flexible enough that when someone is on the phone and, you know, if they're on the phone with collections, they're probably not in a good mood. So you don't want to add more fuel to the fire. You want to be as flexible in your communication as you possibly can. And that's where we train those organizations as well. So it's twofold.
That helps. Like I said, just as we're looking for how do we take advantage. So if anything were possible, so you've taken it from, you know, you've taken the NLP, you still got the Montessori going, you're making an impact, obviously. At multiple levels, what would your impact be, or where would this go? If anything were possible, what would that look like?
And anything is possible. That's the beautiful thing about it, right? It is possible. So my 5-year vision is to really build the NLP Institute, and it's called the NLP Institute of Atlanta right now. But yeah, we've outgrown the Atlanta perimeter and some. That it's truly a global organization, because now you know eventually we will go back into travel, but now we can I had a lady from Algiers on one of my courses the other day. So people from all around the world can take advantage of good authentic NLP and self-development training that they can implement in their personal life, because they're strategies. You can implement them in your personal life and you can implement them in your business life. We're about to start a larger building. So, you know, the possibilities are endless, and I have a very, very big vision. I'm talking to 2 companies right now. They're both in Switzerland. One is a joint venture that we're probably bringing on and training their sales team here in the US and in Germany and in Switzerland and in the UK. And the other company is the International Association of NLP, and they're also in Switzerland, to have an association with them. Right now, we're under the Society of NLP here in the United States, Richard Bandler, and then I'm also talking to ICF, the International Coaching Federation, to have an association with them, and that's pending. So yeah, the more, you know, it's not just fiddle faddling around here and there. It's really, let's combine our efforts. Let's make a greater ripple. Let's lock arms and really serve people with a lot of good knowledge and integrity and meat on the bones and do good.
Amen. I love it. No, I'm serious. I mean, I think that's that one of we go all the way back to our check-in. I mean, when you really think about it, the things that changed and impacted, they opened up possibilities that maybe we had kind of like said, well, and let's stick to the Atlanta area, or let's stick here, or let's, and all of a sudden, it's kind of like I run a networking group locally here that has 1,600 people. And all of a sudden, Be Connected started coming along, and then the pandemic hit. And I went, what I teach and what we learn and how to build community doesn't have to be constrained by the physical proximity. Back to, we're not socially disconnected. We're socially as connected, or more so than we ever need to be. It's just having the right tools, the right techniques. And that's what the beauty of what you're doing in the NLP space, and being able to look at. And it is about relationships. It's not just about connecting to clients, right? You hit on another important thing as a warrior, is that, life's a team sport. We're in this together. Part of you and I connecting here and doing this is, so how can we help each other? How can we fight the battle together to improve it? And it's hard to do that with intention. And that's one of the things, having the relationships, having the tools, building the connections that we're now able to do with intention, and have other people who have similar intentions, even if they're not doing exactly what we're doing, right? We can do it together. That's extremely powerful. So I think I agree, by the way. Obviously, anything is possible. So that's a beautiful thing. Well, let's do this. I think we're ready to move into what I call the land the plane segment, because you've given us a whole ton of things, and I know, believe me, I know we've just scratched the surface. So we come back. I want to kind of give you an opportunity to tell our audience if they take away anything from this, either whether it's from your story, or the things that you're doing now, or the things you're planning to do in the future, maybe something we haven't even talked about. What would you want them to take away from this podcast? And then I want to make sure you don't get away before they understand how we can find you and how they can find you again after this podcast. So let's take another quick break. We'll come back with the Land the Plane segment of Warrior versus Zombie and Brigitta, and with that, let's take a quick break.
Funny how wisdom and youth are always two different games. The years flew by so fast, is the common human complaint. The memories in our minds turn to diamonds in our soul, and by the grace of God.
All right, we're back with the final segment of Warrior versus Zombie and Brigitta Hoeferle, and I'm just blown away. And there's so many things that she's shared with us along her journey, and the things that she's doing now, and how anything is possible. And Brigitta, I want you to share with the audience just, a couple things. If we take away anything from this podcast, what would you like us to take away?
I think the most important thing that I want the audience or the participants or the listeners to take away is the law of requisite variety. Boy, that's a hard word to say for a German. The law of requisite variety. And that is, the person with the most flexibility controls the system. That means if you have enough flexibility in your word catalog, in your listening skills, in your way that you're communicating to others, in the way that you're building relationship with others, it'll come back to you. But the flexibility starts with you, not with the other. I think specifically in this time and age that we're in right now, I don't see a whole lot of flexibility. I see a lot of me, but you got to understand me, and you got to understand me, but what about me? What happened to listening to the other? What happened to having a relationship with the other that might not have the same opinion, might not have the same belief, might not have the same values, might not have the same, religious or political views, but still have respect and still have, or at least some sort of tolerance. I don't see that happening enough right now. So flexibility, if you're not taking away anything else from this, and I sure hope that you're taking way more away, but flexibility, remember that and put it somewhere where you can see it. Choice and flexibility are going to be your greatest friend And that's what I truly believe.
Wow. That is definitely something that we can all benefit from. And it really starts with listening and openly trying to understand and appreciate the other side before you then figure out how to bring value to the equation, right? I mean, that's so many times we come at it, even if it's coming at it from a business standpoint into a marketplace and saying, here's what I do. There's no faster way to turn off a conversation with a prospect or with a partner or just with another human being than just to come in and just start talking about who you are, what's important to you, oh, how great you are, or what you think is important without even bothering to understand kind of where they are. So that's brilliant. I really like that. I really like that as a takeaway. Anything else that any other thoughts that
seek to understand and not to be understood, I think fits in with that perfectly, right? Listen to relate and not to respond. All of that fits right into that choice and flexibility. When I am a warrior at heart. I actually went through warrior training. So, and I remember, back in the days when I did that, I read the 4 Agreements. So I always like to leave people with a book. If you've not read the 4 Agreements, read the 4 Agreements. If you're a Christian, of course, the Bible comes first. The 4 Agreements: be impeccable with your word, always do your best, don't ever assume, don't take anything personal.
Yep, and those are 4 agreements that are often hard. You got to start them with yourself sometimes before you start them with anybody else. And so many people forsake those agreements. So I love that book, by the way. So that's you hit on one. I haven't read it in a while though. I mean, that's you've now. I got to go back. That's beautiful. Well, that's awesome. Well, Brigitta, this has been just an amazing journey. I know that it's going to really impact our audience and warriors for the future. How do we stay in touch with you? What is it how can we get in touch with you after this podcast?
Really easy. You can Google Brigitta Hoeferle. You write it, you spell it just like you pronounce it. It's really easy. It's Brigitta, Brigitta, think Sound of Music. And then the last name is Hoeferle, Hoeferle, Hoeferle. And when you Google that, my website comes up, my social media comes up. I'm found on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, Pinterest. Oh my gosh, you name it, I'm there. Be connected, I am there, right? So Brigitta Hoeferle, or if you want to make it even simpler, NLP Atlanta, N Neuro, L Linguistic, P Programming, NLPatlanta.com. And you can find us there, either one. Really simple.
Okay, well, that makes it easy. And Brigitta Hoeferle is a lot more unique than David Roberts. So, I mean, there's somebody, if I said somebody search for my name, there's 10 pages of at least of, so yeah. And then NLP Atlanta, that's also a good one. So we'll definitely do that. Well, again, thank you so much for sharing with the audience. And I really appreciate your willingness to take this time and share your warrior journey with us. For those that haven't that found us by accident or maybe haven't found us before, you can find us Warrior vs. Zombie on any podcasting platform: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, wherever you like to listen to podcasts. And again, I would encourage you, if you are a warrior and looking to connect with people like Brigitta and myself, we're both in the Be Connected community. I would encourage you to reach out and go to beconnected.com. That's BEEKONNECTED.com. And you can use, if you want to sign up, you can use the special code My Vision Warrior and get a free enrollment there. And with that, we're going to call it an episode with Warrior vs. Zombie with Brigitta Hoeferle. And let's listen to one last segment of Ricky Jean Wright, and It's Not the Getting There. and we'll see you next time.
It's not the getting there, it's the journey every day. It's not a race to see how many people know your name. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know. One day you realize time was worth more than the gold. It's not the getting there, when you get there you'll know.